Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this discussion on why Black Lives Matter. We're very happy to have this conversation with you, like every Tuesday. And today we wanted to talk about rightful representation. So the idea of this topic came about because we realized a few things, we observed a few things about the media and right now at the moment. First of all, we observed that at the Golden Globes, pretty much all Black creators were excluded from this year's nomination list. And, that's not something new, like a lot of awards, academies and institutions often face backlash like once in a few years because they have not included people of color into their nominations. Like everyone knew, like Oscars so white and hashtags like that have been trending a few years ago, like around the time of the Oscars. And yeah, we wanted to talk about why there is why Black people and people of color seem to be forgotten by the mass media and main media outlets today. Even though I feel personally that there has been a lot of like Black creators on the rise, a lot of good shows and movies this year. And so, yeah, that is a question that we wanted to ask ourselves. And I feel this is really important. We often hear that representation matter, but what doesn't mean and why? Also, a few days ago, I think 1 or 2 days ago, there was this interview of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry with Oprah. Basically explaining why they left the royal family, and that it was a large part of it was because of racism on their family's part, on the media's part, and basically they left, but they were also like outcasts in the family, and basically the royal family didn't want to see a Black heir, um, an heir that was a son of the Prince Harry that was of color, and they didn't want to have that kind of representation and diversity. And so, yeah, we feel like this is an old rooted pattern about excluding Black people from, I guess, the general good. Like, I feel like this is as if Black people want a lot to partake in everything that the other people benefits from, or not as much. And so, yeah, I wanted to hear what you guys have to say about it, about representation.
Well, I think you summed that up perfectly. Because like it all feels so tied together. It's like either like Black people and people of color are being excluded from media, or they're being treated really poorly by media. And that's something that was like really a big thing with like British media. And they like, there was like, I saw this, I saw this, I think in the interview, Oprah compared articles about Kate Middleton and articles about Meghan Markle. And one was about like how Kate Middleton was eating an avocado to help with like her pregnancy. And Meghan Markle did the same exact thing. They wrote an article about that and said like it was crazy, like she's contributing to like I don't know, like pollution or something really crazy and dumb. And it was really just because like she is half Black. And just like it's very eye-opening. I think this was very eye-opening to like the whole world. Like racism's not just in America, guys, you know. It's everywhere, and it's a deep-rooted issue that is ready to be healed. And yeah, I found it really like fascinating, like seeing that this is being uprooted, because you know it's karma. It's definitely karma coming back to bite people in the butt that were being racist and abusive. And hopefully this is an opportunity for like the media to really take a look at themselves and like get better. I hope they do. But yeah, and everyone to like notice where maybe they're having that bias and they're not seeing clearly because of that bias and spreading that bias, you know? So yeah.
I loved everything you said. Like, first of all, one big thing that you said, that racism isn't just in America, and I realized that one big thing that I've seen this week is all countries have the same patterns, and they're just expressed differently. Like, for example, I was thinking about the United States and policing. And I was thinking, I don't have the same problem with policing, but it's coming up in a different form, I guess, in France. And so that's really important to know that like the problem isn't with the others. We cannot hide it anymore. And I think what the whole Meghan Markle ordeal pointed out is that a lot of people like hid it behind excuses of like, oh, if there's no people of color that are leading here, or if there are no Black creators that are nominated this year, it's because it's based on merit and solely on merit, and it should always be that way. And when you're trying to like promote someone who isn't like worthy to be promoted here, and we realize with these things that no, actually people are attacking her. She's not held to the same standards as white people, as basically her sister-in-law for doing the same thing. And also there is this pattern of if you do something, basically anything, and you're a Black person, your whole community suffers from it. So basically one Black person did something and So the media are gonna point that out as all black people are doing the same thing, or all black people are bad and are the same, basically. It's like, no, it's not really merit there. Just putting a case, and yeah, it's like exclusion from having a normal life.
It feels like white people are in this like case with the royal family and the Hollywood Foreign Press. They're really scared of Black people. Like that's why they're like it. When I watched the interview, and it was just like the family was just like vicious. It felt like towards Meghan, like, and the press was vicious towards her, and like there's this deep fear that like she brought up in a lot of people, and it was really just the fear of everyone's own self, everyone's own divinity. But like, yikes, like it doesn't like I think that's where we can heal, is just knowing that it's safe to change, it's safe to invite newness, it's safe to like go to that place where we're fearful of change. And like there's this term that you told me about. I forget what it is. It was a long time ago, but it's like white something. Where, do you remember what I'm talking about? uh I don't remember what it is, but like it was, yes, white fragility. Yeah, it has a lot to do with that. I feel it's like, they like people in power that are white are scared of the power that Black people have.
Yeah.
Feel like that power is going to be taken away from them, and it's just like,
Yeah, the idea that one person of color can uproot the whole monarchy, and so destabilize their power, or the same thing, like Black people having more rights um, can threaten white supremacists and their way of living. Like it's basically the same thing.
yeah, and they literally got what they like didn't want to happen. They're like, no, she's gonna ruin the monarchy. Well, you guys ruined it yourself by choosing fear and choosing hate. Like, she could have done a lot of good for the monarchy and like transformed it and created something really beautiful if they chose love.
Yeah.
But unfortunately they didn't.
Yeah, she basically could have modernized their whole image and like really help their public image, but they didn't want. Yeah, she had a divine role to play there, and they didn't want it. So that's my feeling.
Yeah, so the feeling I get from it is that she had a divine role to play there, but she may also not have accepted her own divine role to play there. And so what happened was it was rejected on both sides. And the reason why I say that is that you cannot have somebody else creating your reality, right? So what was the rejection based on? What was this messy thing that they weren't prepared to deal with? Where was she not prepared to look at the messy thing herself? And so one of those feelings that came up for me when you mentioned the concept of white fragility is also Black fragility. Like Black people not accepting that they are powerful and holding themselves back because they fear their own power. And can one person literally uproot an entire system? Or can one person contribute to transforming a system in their way? And I think that's the message that we need to kind of understand, is that we all have power. We all have substance. We all have the ability to contribute to change in some way or another, but we have to accept it. And it comes back to, are you playing small? Are you afraid of what you actually bring to the table? And do you believe that because you bring that amount of power to the table, you can actually hurt people? Because if you believe that you have the power to hurt them, they're going to believe that you have the power to hurt them.
That's good. It didn't sound good when you first started, not gonna lie. But that's real. That's real. Um, I remember when they first left the royal family, I was like, because I like the royal family stuff. Like, I got up in the middle of the morning, watch weddings. I watched Kate wedding. I watched Meghan's wedding. And I binge watched The Crown. I love the Crown series. Like, I'm here for the royal family. I'm here for learning about them. And so I think when I first heard that they left, I was like, girl, you left the royal family? And not in that, like, you know, who are you to leave the royal family, but like, yo, like, you could do some damage up in the royal, you know what I mean? Like, this is really like a really you know, awesome thing. And so, like, the royal family is akin to, I don't know, it's really nothing like it in America, because it's not akin to the president. It's deeper than that, right? Like, it's legacy. And so I really like what you just pointed out there, Granville, of like, you know, stepping up to the power that, you know, she was given and they were given as a unit, and the choice that Harry made to even enter into that power, like all those things. Their wedding was even powerful. I did a sermon and I talked about their wedding, because their wedding was like around Pentecost, like I remember, because I did a sermon. And so that's real. And so I am making a choice right now to step into whatever that power is that God has for me, and to really claim it, and just to repeat doing that, right? Because if you don't, you do tap out. Now, that is not to undermine what they did, don't get it twisted. And not to undermine, you know, how they have presented themselves, but that's a good point that you make, for sure.
Mm. And you know what, the thing is not that they tapped out. I don't believe that they tapped out. Sometimes you've got to step away from what is becoming a boiling pot. It's as simple as that. If somebody's creating a fire underneath a pot and you don't want to boil, get the fuck out of the pot.
Yeah, like, one of the things that was touched on in quite a few interviews that I watched was we talked about how they're a unit, that they are a couple, and Harry has a lot of trauma around this with his mother and the things that media and the family did towards his mother. And so I do feel that a lot of their choices could have really been based off of just trauma and fear, and of course not having this work and knowing how to work through it. And so they put up a boundary the best way that they knew how, especially being new parents. And so just really having compassion for them, and really understanding that as maybe they didn't step in their power in a certain way inside the royal family, however, they have stepped in their power and brought light to this for the communities and for the world to see, and to realize that there is still racism here. And so even though they may not have maybe done more within the royal family, I do feel that they're still bringing to light places where God would like light to be shined at, and to really acknowledge that there, because it would take a lot to go on national TV and speak about the royal family and the way that has been spoken, knowing that there will be backlash and all the things that come with it. However, it does require her to, both of them, to step in their power to be able to communicate this so authentically and vulnerably.
Yeah, then that's, that's kind of the thing that I'm saying. There's two sides to this power. There's their very own personal power that they kind of need to accept more, but there's also power in laying down the boundary and saying, I choose not to suffer because of circumstance. I choose to draw this boundary. I choose to no longer allow that suffering into my life. That's not tapping out, but at the same time, you have to also acknowledge that you have power. You have significant power because you are in a significant space in the world. And maybe this is them displaying their significant power, but it's still about accepting that actually none of us are weak individuals, and it's time to stop acting that way.
Amen.
Yeah, our first card is discernment. You are developing the skills to distinguish love from fear and truth from illusion. Just perfect.
Amen.
I just realized this is connecting, I think, to our discussion last week about like power and versus control. Because like Meghan Markle's obviously American, and she talked about like that in the interview, how she's like, she has that like American ideal of freedom, like really like locked in. And then she goes to the royal family, who's like very controlling. Like they took away her ID, her passport, her car keys, like everything when she got there. And that was just like the beginning of like the amount of control that was really contrasting with what she grew up with. And like in the interview, you could tell like she was definitely like in those times she was really feeling powerless. Like she like thought like this system had power over her. And so did Harry, and like they they did definitely give away their power for a time. And Meghan was feeling like suicidal because that she felt like she didn't have any power. And that should never be the case. You should never have to feel that way. Never like choose to give your power away like that. But they did, I feel like, make a new choice here to, claim their power back, like having an interview with Oprah, like, and on CBS, like the whole world to see, claiming their power back from, the vicious media. I think that's a good message we're seeing. It's like, yeah, like, and they are very powerful. Like anyone is very powerful. Anyone can overcome a really bad situation. And that's what I see.
Yeah, as you were saying that, it's really just this feeling of like she had this belief that she had to sacrifice for love. She had to sacrifice her good to be able to have the man that she loves, and that's not the truth. And so as she, I think, really started to claim her power, they both saw that like they didn't have to sacrifice to love each other. They could just love each other and be together, and that's what they're choosing now.
Yeah, you know what? I think you touched on quite an important thing that is probably one of the reasons why there's still relationship with struggle in the world. is it because people believe that they have to sacrifice things. And, you know, like one of the core teachings of unionism is that you do not have to sacrifice. You surrender to God and you let go of control, but you don't have to sacrifice the desires of your heart. And so I feel like that energy of sacrificing is still keeping us in, and I think possibly even in the space of healing racism, is that keeps us in relationship with struggle, which is possibly one of the core things that's going to help us heal racism at the core, is to release that relationship with struggle. Because why do you need to sacrifice your good? Why do you need to let go of the desire of your heart to find something else? I mean, what is God's way in this place for you? And yes, there are some things that you have to be exceptionally discerning about, because you will find certain spaces and certain people and certain things that might feed illusion rather than feed truth. Like, we all get that. We're not dumb people. So there is that space of being really discerning, but also be discerning about the fact that you don't have to sacrifice your good to have your good. You kind of just need to surrender, control, and trust to have your good.
I think that's why a lot of people of color are afraid to step into their power, is, and we've talked about this before, like with Martin Luther King, is like having them step into their power and then feeling like they're going to sacrifice almost their life, like something's going to be taken from them stepping into their power, based off of what we've seen in history. And really having to, like, in that illusion that, like, our good's going to be taken, our life's going to be taken just by us stepping into our power. Really, we're actually receiving more life, more good, more abundance by stepping into our power, and we're sharing that, and really choosing to also recognize, like, why are we doing it? Are we doing it, and just touched on this before, are we doing it for the recognition of the world, or are we doing it because we're serving God and because our heart is being guided to serve God in this way? And so I really feel that for those who are fearful of stepping into their power, just recognize, like, why do you want to? And if it's because you just have that desire and you want to follow God in that way, you're safe, you're completely protected by doing that. And that it's okay to really claim your divinity, claim your truth.
Mm.
I wonder how it translates into, like, representation in the media. Why do we struggle to have that representation in culture, in the media? Is it just like powerlessness, or yeah?
What if it's truly a fear of actually being seen for how powerful we really are?
Yeah, that could be, because oftentimes, sometimes you have maybe you're in acting and you have a role, let's say, and the director asks you to change your hair, or kind of hide your true self to have the job. So yeah, maybe there's a fear of being seen fully.
Mm. And, one of the ways that it's played out for me is that I've had to almost in my life kind of be pushed to the point where there was no return sometimes before I did something that I should have done in the first place. So it was also shying away from that power and being afraid to stand in my power that allowed me to be pushed around. And the point at which I was no longer comfortable with it was such a massive display of power that it probably sometimes did scare people. But at that point, there was no other way but there could have very easily been a much more comfortable way if I had just displayed my power more easily and comfortably all along. It's kind of that waiting until you're in the corner and now you're ready to fight, as opposed to not waiting and kind of asserting your boundaries all the time. Your boundaries don't have to be filled with animosity. Your boundaries are literally about you respecting and honoring yourself.
Yeah, it feels very good. Like one thing I have noticed is that white people often seems to know how to sell themselves. For example, they say, I have a good thing and here's why, and you're gonna love it. And for example, the same people, the same idea but presented by people of color is like, oh, I have a good thing and maybe you'd like to hear about it. Can you give me the time of day? It's an energy, right? And so
yeah, it's almost that energy of being apologetic for taking up space and time.
yeah, exactly. And so it just gives way for people to push you around and until you can't take it anymore. So I think there's needs for constant consistency, I guess.
Yeah, and stop being apologetic for existing.
Yeah.
Like let's just call it, what the actual fuck? Stop being apologetic for existing. Maybe if we get over that, we might get to the point where like, actually, it's okay for me to say the thing that I need to say now. Not wait for 2 weeks down the line when I'm ready to actually put my hands around somebody's throat.
True.
It's like, how much abuse will you take? Like this I see in my own union, and like everyone deals with this with their twin flame. Like, you know, your twin flame might be exhibiting like an abusive behavior, because you know, we work through abuse, we work through ego, and it's your job as the counterpart to call them out and not enable them and not give in to powerlessness. It's the same thing, you know, like you can't expect your twin flame to change by enabling them and giving into their illusion that they are bad. Same thing with racism. You can't allow abuse. You just cannot.
Yeah. And that's something that shows in racism and also sexism patterns. Like this education of being docile to the point where, yeah, basically being docile and just being abused and taken from in that space. Like, for example, for me, it came from my parents and was seen as, in my culture, a sign of respect, of being docile, not saying anything to people that are older. But it's actually not. Like when I realized it, there's a lot of friction with my parents, but like it's learning that respect is like a two-way street where we can learn from each other. It needs to be healthy, and yeah, I feel that energy can be like very needy and codependent. I don't know if that resonates with you guys, but it's like you depend on someone to I don't know, do things for you, like for example, in cinema, you depend on someone to kind of promote you instead of promoting yourself. For example, it's like, don't wait on people, don't be needy or codependent, don't wait for validation to just be you. you know?
Yeah, so our next card is satisfaction. You let the energy of love guide you to self-approval so that others no longer define who you are.
What was the actual word?
Satisfaction.
Satisfaction. Perfect.
I just wanted to ask the question in regards to the Golden Globes, and I guess also in regards to the royal family. Like, one of the things that came up for me when I heard about both of them was like, I guess it's kind of like not being shocked, right? Like not like kind of almost being like, well, yeah, that makes sense. Like that happened again, like sort of feeling. Yeah, so I just like wonder how much of it is also like our expectation that this is like gonna happen. And that like you know, going into it, it's like, oh, well, it's happening again. You know what I mean? Like, and one of the things I also had mentioned last week when I heard it for the first time, Marley had told us about it, was like you'd mentioned something about like the judges panel was all white people. And I'm like, God damn it. Like, why does it have to be a black person on a judge of panels in order to make sure that there are, you know, black artists being selected for awards? Like, and I guess for me, like I have this feeling of just kind of like frustration and like how much of it is just like expectation of like, well, we expected that to happen. We expect the media and things like that to just do that. And so then it's already, we're in victim mentality of this is gonna happen. Do you know what I mean? So I'm just curious like what people's thoughts are about that, and maybe I have something to feel here.
So I don't think you're off the mark, because when I heard the Harry and Meghan story, like my energy is, well, you know, it's old money, they are bigoted, like, you know, it's one of those things. But the fact of the matter is that the energy of, it's one of those things, is the energy of futility. It's the energy of not trusting that God is changing things, even though it takes longer for us to see it in our reality. So yeah, so, you know, like even feeling through that, I'm like, well, you know, why am I not giving God the trust in this space? Because it is the energy of futility. It's the energy of futility that while we're not seeing the reality shifting as quickly as we're liking it to shift, we're also possibly not believing enough that it's shifting or that it will shift. You know, what's Yuri's asking what's futility's meaning in English. Well, futility is the English word, so it's kind of that energy of being resigned to things being the way they are, because actually you don't believe that change can happen. So you don't try because you don't want to expend energy. Does that help you? Does that answer you, Yuri?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does, thank you. Because like futility in French is vanity.
Vanity. Oh, okay, yeah, no.
Yeah.
So yeah, so futility is the word that would be like, well, actually, I'm not going to try because nothing's going to happen anyway.
Okay.
So I feel like there's a little bit of that energy behind the question that Ray asked, and behind the feeling that we have, well, are we surprised kind of thing? The fact of the matter is it should surprise us. That should not be our reality. We should not have this energy that, well, this is always the way things are, the way things have been, and the way things will be, because that's bullshit.
I think that that's what a lot of the people in the royal family felt. Because I don't know like all the details in regards to everything, but like when I feel into it energetically, it feels like with the royal family, like some of them obviously held strong in this fear, this racism. I think a lot of them within the royal family probably were like, well, this is just the way we've done it for years, so why are we going to change it? Like, you know, sorry, you know. And so yeah, like and even when you said like old money and stuff like that, like there's just this like feeling, yeah, around like a helplessness to your reality. And I think it goes hand in hand with what you were talking about in regards to Meghan Markle and her claiming her power, and that everyone in their situation has to claim their power and claim their divinity. And so for me, like I claim to see a reality where all my brothers and sisters are recognized and represented, right? And not like succumbing to the reality, not like seeing that the reality is what it is, right? And I have to feel my feelings about it, but recognizing that the reality is actually what I can desire it to be.
Absolutely. I mean, and you know what? The thing that I think you've touched on is recognizing that illusion that's overlaying our reality at the moment.
Yeah.
Choosing to push through the illusion.
Mm.
Because that's really what we're calling in here. We're calling in the other side of the illusion. But if we feel like even our choice and our call for that movement forward is going to bring nothing, that is where the energy of futility is going to sit, and that's what's going to keep us stuck.
Right.
And that's why it kind of makes sense to me to just kind of shine a light on it. Because when it comes into your awareness, you can sit and observe it, and you can allow for the illusion to fall away. But if you don't realize that you're in an illusion, what do you do?
Yeah, you know, and it's interesting to me because I'm just like thinking about all this of like, you know, how this could have even happened, right? And seeing like I really, really, really like and maybe just want to bring back to like what Marley said in regards to like that, like, well, they're scared, right? And like feeling into that energy too, because I like think about it and I'm like, well, like in my life, have I ever had experiences of being afraid of a Black person? I have. Yeah, like I just like I guess I kind of want to maybe even go deeper there because I feel like there's something to that. Like why it's not even just about power, it's just about like almost the storyline that was ingrained in us in some way of thinking that something was like a person could be harmful or scary just by the color of their skin, right? Like there's some like, and I think that has something to do with media too, because we were talking about that, because you know, even just like growing up and watching media, we watch all the different things that come out there. Like, you know, you see on YouTube, sometimes you watch the Facebook watch or whatever, like there's like Black people fighting or, you know, like all this stuff, right? And there's not enough about like the truth. And like, I think Irene pointed to it too. It was like, well, if one Black person does something stupid, then it's like the media talks about it like it's, you know, every Black person is this way, right? Like, so yeah, like there's something here that I think that like is being pointed to as well in regards to like on the white side of things.
It feels like the continuation of the dehumanization of Black people.
Yeah.
And slavery, like, and then they continue to do it through media, like with movies, making like Black people rapists in movies, and then more stuff. It's just but it does go back to the fear of losing power. Like that's why the dehumanization happened, is because like white people had to like make their slaves like not feel powerful, feel like they were less than, so they could control and manipulate. And
Right,
that's
so that they could have power, so that they could have money, so that they could have the life that they wanted.
to take.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, but obviously we're healing through it. And that, like, that's one thing I want to bring up is like, in order to heal through this, we cannot focus on the bad. We must focus on the love. And when I saw this story, instead of like feeling like, oh, like, damn, like another racist story, I was like, well, here's something we could talk about. And here's something we could heal. And that's the mentality I feel we should be having. Instead of like focusing, oh, there's more abuse, there's more racism, that's just giving power to it. That's just continuing the pattern that we're experiencing. And we don't need to continue that pattern. We don't need to continue giving our power to abuse.
Yeah, I definitely want to agree with you that we don't need to continue giving power to any of those things, but I do believe that we need to spotlight it so that we know which places we need to heal. And I think one of the things that Ray touched on and you also touched on was that fear that we need to heal through, because I think that fear is on both sides. And that fear is what feeds the separation, which is exactly the thing that we're trying to heal past. We're trying to heal back to our union with each other as souls, regardless of the color representation of their soul in this reality. I think that's the important thing for me, because as long as we feel the feeling of being separated from each other by any means whatsoever, and unfortunately mass media is just one of those things right now that does fuel it, it's also something that we can very comfortably say, well, we choose for it not to be that way. We choose for our reality to shift in a way where we can actually see the unity amongst people. And so I don't believe that highlighting or spotlighting the issue is a challenge, but I do agree that we do need to heal past dwelling on issues. We need to get past the point of, and I think it's something that's always been quite a thing in my mind is, kind of get past that space of relating inside of the complaint.
I want to ask a question real quick. So, like, when you guys, because I think it's interesting because media is like a hot topic right now in this conversation, and it's been a conversation piece for us in a lot of our discussions, because media does play a huge role in essentially creating the illusions within our minds, right? And so I guess my question is like, when you're watching a movie, right, and you're watching a scary movie, right, how do you decipher that that's not real, that actor isn't really going to come into your house and kill you, right? Or that, like, that this is just a movie, right? And I think that, like, whatever that answer is likely the answer to how we handle looking at media, because I think that we trust it so much sometimes that we expect it to be true. And I feel like there's something in how we can decipher the illusion from the truth, so that we're not giving power to media. Does that make sense?
So I kind of hear your question. I just kind of want to say that we need to kind of strip out some of the layers. Because for me, like a movie, for instance, is very much fantastical. It's fantasy. People just kind of get that sense of it. But then you hear things like news, and you hear things like, and you see things like little snippets of people being harassed by either white or black people on streets and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, the fantastical component of it goes away. So that's where you can't really use the same, but you can't really use that sense of the fantastical inside of a movie or a series as a similar, as almost a route into unpacking what's not fantastical about supposed reality. And then the other thing we also need to remember is that there is a lot of sensationalism, and there's a lot of control, and there's a lot of controlled narratives. We need to understand that those are the things, unfortunately, sometimes that sell. If it's a feel-good story, it doesn't often attract as much attention. But let there be a sense, like there's a sensationalist component to it, it attracts a lot of attention. And I think that's what we kind of need to heal past, is that the bad seems to attract more attention. That's what I feel is at the core of it.
It has a lot to do with getting high. Like, people are like literally addicted to the drama. They're addicted to the abuse because they feel like they can get really high off of it. And that's what like the media knows. And that's like, that's why we have like clickbait or like stuff like that. And it's like, this work has helped me like decipher what feels good and what feels bad, from where I get my news. And it's just about tuning into your feelings, like feeling your feelings. That's how you know where to find the truth. Like always, like that's what Jeff and Shaleia teach. If you're confused about what you should believe, just trust God and God will lead you to the truth.
Yeah, there's part of the problem where the media, like the news outlets, are supposed to be a real reliable source of information, and so people do trust that and still like consume them every day. And there's also the part of the consumer who needs to be like level-headed and like compare sources and like just be curious and peaceful about the information that they read about or that they hear about. So yeah, I guess it's a two-way street. Like it's the relationship, it's feeding off of one another. People want drama, and media wants to have like a good number of audiences. So yeah.
We can claim a media, like we can claim that, like a media that supports us. And like every time we see something that we don't like, we can just claim in our hearts like what we do want. And that's what Jeff and Shaleia shared in their YouTube video about government. I feel like it's the same kind of deal. Like, we're not really happy with the media. Like we clearly saw what they did with Vanity Fair, with our community. And yeah, we just, we can continue claiming that perfect media that we desire and continue healing through the shit. Going through that. Yeah.
Yeah, how are you guys feeling right now? I kind of feel like we've reached completion for today. Cool. Well, then I'm going to say thank you to everybody for joining us today. I'm going to say thank you to everybody who's been following us in the comments. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you again next week. We'd like to invite you to like and subscribe to our Church of Union YouTube channel, where you will find all our previous Black Lives Matter conversations and any other live discussions that have happened in the Church of Union. And we look forward to seeing all of you next week. Thank you, everybody.